Another week and a brand new list of the hottest books in the world, and dare I say, it's quite refreshing, Jem.
Quite a few new books on the list this week, and spoilers, there's no Dazzler and no Deadpool. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and Tom, hit us with number 10.
Detective Comics 400, first appearance of Man-Bat. Knowing that the Arkham series is actively in development, we have a Penguin series coming. This is all going to be part of the Matt Reeves Batman universe, and you know that they're going to be sourcing multiple villains from Batman's Rogues Gallery. Man-Bat seems inevitable.
Man, I would love to see them do a live-action Man-Bat. I think they would make him look so gnarly. We've got 5 sales to report on. 4 of them are performing double-digit percentages over their 12-month average. The 2.5 is up 19%. The 6.0 is up 13%. The 7.5 sold for $550, 26% above average. The 8.0 is up 14%, and the 9.0 only 2% above that 12-month, but selling for a strong $1,120.
There's a lot of Batman out there, but I have to do a strong recommendation on Joshua Williamson's Batman and Robin. And by the way, we have Man-Bat featured on cover on issue number 8. Make sure to pick that up at your LCS. Follow Joshua Williamson on Instagram and do yourself a solid. Download the best comic app in existence. It's called Key Collector Comics. Utilize code TOM101 to unlock a free 2-week subscription to the app. Get access to this very list we cover every week before we even hit the mic.
Which brings us to number 9 on the list. I immediately thought of Tom when I saw this one. We've got John Byrne's X-Men, issue 21, the first appearance of Hellboy in color.
This is one of my favorite Hellboy keys of all time. It's attainable. The prices are seemingly low, so much to the point that I'm kind of interested in picking another one up. We have an 8.0 up 8%, 9.0 25%, 9.2 16% up, 9.4 is up 32%. You can get a 9.8 for $363, and that's an increase of 1%. And you're going to want to pick up 2 of them because it's the same cover as the back cover, just without trade dress. You can display this book in 2 different ways.
The David Harbour Hellboy movie is now available on Netflix. There is a video game that you can download on Steam for just $15. Plus, there is a Mike Mignola Hellboy documentary, The Drawing Monsters, which has just landed a distributor, and I heard someone I know has a little cameo in that.
I don't know if they're going to use the footage. I suspect they will, but safe to say that my hands may be featured in the Mignola documentary. And if it does happen, I'll make sure to bring that footage back to the mic. Hit the like button. Stay tuned because we have more comics to discuss at number 8 with Godzilla number 1. The movie came out this last week, and is it true what I'm hearing? That Godzilla, riding on King Kong, like that's a thing? It's doing better than Dune right now. How is that possible?
We haven't talked about this book since February 26th when it reached number 7 on the Hot 10. There have been 54 more slabs added to the census since then. It started to hit the list when Godzilla -1 was released in theaters and became a huge hit, and now we're seeing it back on the list as he's back in theaters. The 8.5 sold for $97, under $100, but still 9% above his 12-month average, and 2 copies outperformed this week. The 9.4 is up 18%, 3 copies outsold the average. The 9.6 sold for a yearly high of $280, 48% above average. And then we got the 9.8, the highest coming in at $456 for a 5% increase, and 2 copies outperformed this week.
Godzilla's first U.S. appearance in a comic book you can get at a 9.8 for under $500. But seeing that there's an increase of 398 since we chatted about this last makes me feel like that census count is definitely keeping that price affordable. What do you think about that price, Jem? I can't help but shop for this book myself. I think I'm going to pick this up at one of the conventions this year.
Yeah, you got to grab that Godzilla issue 1, and you might as well pick up the Godzilla 70th Anniversary Lucio Perillo exclusive.
That's right, brother. I appreciate you bringing that up. It's one of the hottest books we've released this year. We have 1,200 printed on ComicTom101.store, and we're almost sold out. Next on the list, at number 7, Strange Adventures 205, Dead Man, back on the list. And I was just reading Kelly Jones' Dead Man because I've been reminded so much about Justice League Dark, James Gunn. This also seems like it's gotta happen. We have a 3.5 up 32% and 3 copies outsold that 12-month average. The 4.0 is up 4%, the 4.5 16%, the 7.0 sold for $659, 18% up, and 2 copies outsold that 12-month average. And the sales didn't stop there. Why are people buying this? It has to be because they're specking. The 7.5 is about to hit $1,000. It sold for $985, and that's up 21%.
Awesome to see this book hit the list. I don't think it's ever been on the Hot 10. It was on the trending list just 2 weeks ago, and there is one less slab on the census since then.
Some people may not know that if you're cracking out slabs and you send back that label to CGC, they will update that census count. It looks like someone did that. Or maybe they're just in the process of grading a grade bump, and we may have a change in census count in a short week. Stay tuned. You know we'll be following it. And next on the list at number 6, we have Marvel Spotlight number 5, Blue Chip, first appearance of Ghost Rider, and we'll just throw out there that we're going to be talking about Ghost Rider 1 too.
We haven't talked about this book since August 15th of 2022, and it's from a video that we don't even do anymore, The Runners Up, the first appearance of Johnny Blaze, 3.0, selling for just shy of $700, 9% above his 12-month average. The 4.0 is up 2%, the 7.5 is also up 2%, and then we got the 8.0, selling for $3,240, 27% above that 12-month average.
A lot of reasons to spec on this comic book. This character is beloved. It's a major blue chip key from the Bronze Age. But when you think about the heights it reached just a short few years ago, at a 8.0, you would have paid around $6,000 to almost $7,000 for this comic book. And now members are able to secure it for the $3,000 marker. Some books are only going to drop so far before people just go, I'm adding it to my PC, or I'm going to scoop it up now, just in case.
And like Tom mentioned, collectors are picking up the first appearance of Johnny Blaze and the first solo issue. The 5.5 up 2%, the 6.0's up 3%, the 7.5 sold for $610, 14% above average, and the 8.5 selling just at above average at $700.
Who do you want to see portray Johnny Blaze on the big screen? How would you feel if Nick Cage just did it again? I mean, he's going to be Spider-Man Noir.
I'm a Nick Cage fan, but did you catch that fan-made Keanu Reeves trailer?
Yo, I can't help but think that Keanu would absolutely kill it as Ghost Rider, and I want to know the community's thoughts in the comment section below. While we go to number 5 on the list with, dare I say, one of the worst examples of someone overpaying for a comic book, and it is indeed Hulk 181.
And a prime example of a collector not watching these videos. Man, we have a huge overspend and then somebody who got a steal of a deal.
That's right. Let's start with the numbers. First appearance of Wolverine in full, 2.0, up 9%, 6.5, 7%. The 9.0 clocked in its year-long high, selling for $9,200. And this book could have been secured around the $8,000 for the last 3-4 months. Then the 9.4 had a height reach this past week of $13,690. Now, that is an increase of 12%. Sure. And the heights a 9.4 reached was $22,800, and that was back in 2021. But report on the last sale, Jem.
I think two things can be true at the same time. This person overpaid just a little bit for this Hulk 181, but in a span of just 8 days, somebody paid $8,700, $5,000 less.
We've only heard rumors of Henry Cavill Wolverine, no new updates about Deadpool 3, and truthfully, this book in high grade, crossing that $10,000 marker as a spec purchase, to me, is too much money to spec based off of a movie that's going to feature probably the last Wolverine adaptation by Hugh Jackman. I think someone's pieing this book because it's getting so low. Some members are just going to commit now before the book inevitably goes back up. And I said inevitably like 3 times this video.
I hadn't noticed. There's 18 more books on the census since we talked about this book just 2 weeks ago. But check this out. There's one less 9.4, one less 9.6, and a new 9.8.
I suspect someone cracked, pressed, and resubmitted with all those changes in census count. And I bet that person who grabbed that 9.4 for so little, or maybe even the person who paid a little extra, was trying to do the same thing. Not to mention the fact that we do have some low-key rumors about Funko Pops coming, possibly being announced, a Lady Deadpool for Deadpool 3. Could that mean that Dazzler is actually not going to be in this movie? Could it mean that Taylor Swift is actually going to be Lady Deadpool?
Well, we know we're getting the Deadpool core. We had that poster from last week that we spoke about that had all the silhouettes. Missing Lady Deadpool, but I wouldn't be surprised if she showed up. Now, the real question is this next character going to show up? Number 4 on the list, we've got Nyx 3, the first appearance of X-23.
We've been doing the Hot 10 for over 4 years straight without skipping a beat. The trending video for going on 6 years this June. If you want to support the show directly, we'll send you comics every single month, only $34.99. Everybody's guaranteed 2 exclusives this month, and they are bangers. One is Deadpool #1, an ASM 300 homage by Dan Panosian, and we didn't stop there. We also had Dan do a Jackpot Black Cat #1, Mary Jane Black Cat cover. Peter's hit the jackpot twice this month, and you can too by hitting the link in the description, securing your box, and supporting the show. You have under a week left to join.
Well, we do know that there's going to be a new Knicks comic book that's coming out as part of this new X-Men wave of books. We had news last month of the actress Daphne Keane possibly reprising her role for Deadpool 3.
She posted an image celebrating the 7-year anniversary since her time portraying X-23 on Logan. And that right there seemed like almost too perfect of timing. Coupling that with the new series that's coming out later this year, I think X-23 has to be in this movie. And I think the sales are proving it, that the community agrees.
A ton of sales on this book, but the 9.0 sold for a year high of $499. That's 8% above its 12-month average. The 9.4 is up 4%. The 9.6 is up 8%. 2 copies outperforming this week. And the 9.8 sold for $285, 12% above its 12-month average, and 2 copies also outdid that average.
Since we chatted about this book 2 weeks ago, our numbers show an increase of 8 copies added to the census, 2 of which were 9.6 and 2 of which were 9.8. That's an increase of availability on a pretty pricey book, making it make sense why this book is kind of staying steady when the hype goes up. Next on the list, at number 3, Uncanny X-Men 101, debuting of new powers. Jean Grey is reborn as the Phoenix, and this book is hot as hell. And I have to imagine it's because of X-Men 97, the mutants being reintroduced to the MCU at large. But could they do this story again? Hard to believe that they would give it another crack. But also, is it possible to tell the Marvel X-Men story without Jean Grey going full Dark Phoenix?
I, for one, am good with another live-action adaptation. They've already done it twice, both times not so well, so I don't really need to see it again in the MCU. However, I like them referencing the Phoenix in X-Men 97. What do you guys think in the comments down below? Do they give it another shot for the MCU?
This is an interesting book to report on because the heights it reached was, yes, $9,600, maybe around the $8,000 marker, but all those sales took place on a very particular website, an auction house called Heritage Auctions, where books sometimes go for absurdly high prices. I would put the real heights of this book around the $6,000 to $7,000 marker, which is really where this book is trending right now. I don't think this book has taken the hits that some people may believe it has.
Yeah, I like to think there's a different group of collectors that purchase off Heritage. Maybe they had bad experiences with eBay, and maybe they feel more secure and protected there, but Heritage does seem to have a lot of those higher sales. Here we got a 4.5, not necessarily from Heritage, selling for $340, 27% above its 12-month average. The 5.5 is up 36%, and 2 copies are outperforming. The 6.0 is up 2%, the 7.0 is up 19%, the 8.0 is up 4%, and then we have an 8.5 coming in at $700, 21% above average.
3 new slabs have been added to the census since we chatted about this book just last week, and they're all in high grade. 1 new 9.2, 1 new 9.6, and 1 new 9.8. Looking at the list at number 2, Amazing Spider-Man number 1, the second appearance of Peter Parker. Is this Spider-Man key spec, or is it because of Craven? I'm just kidding. It is not because of Craven, but did you forget, Jem? I almost did, that there's going to be a Craven movie?
I did forget that, actually.
This is the first appearance of the Chameleon, half-brother of Craven, who's confirmed to be in this movie that I think people wanted to forget were happening because Madam Web was so bad.
Even though it looks like the Chameleon may be in this movie, I don't think that that's why people are dropping what they could be spending on a used car for this book here. The 1.5 selling for $65.50, 23% above its 12-month average. Somebody got the 1.8 for a little bit cheaper, $6,100, which is still up 9%. Then we have the 3.5 selling for $10 grand, right about at average, and the 6.5 doing the same thing, selling for $27,000.
This book hit $38,000 in that grade in 2022. Seeing multiple sales this week is very impressive on a book that's so expensive, but also seeing them essentially sell for about what they've been going for all year long tells me that some books are only going to drop so far, this one included.
Yeah, when you're in a down market and books are selling for average, that's a good look.
Hit the like, slap the subscribe button. We're here every week for the Comic Fam, and number 1 on the list is a shocker. I can't believe it's here. This whole list was filled with brand new books. Jem, why don't you hit him with the number 1 hottest book in the world?
Why do you got to make me do it? It's Wolverine 1, the first solo miniseries, iconic Frank Miller cover, but look how many sales there are. It's your guys' fault that this book is on the list, not ours. We have a 6.5 up 2%, a 7.5 is up 49%, a newsstand 8.0 is up 10%, an 8.5 is up 43%, a 9.2 sold for $200. That puts it 26% above its 12-month average, and 2 copies outperformed this week.
The newsstand 9.2 is up 20%, and 3 copies outsold that 12-month average. The 9.4 sold for $210 at its height this week. Shout out Madam Web for an increase of 10%, and 2 copies outsold the 12-month average. The Newsy 9.4 sold for $249, an increase of 2%. Are you still with me, comic fam? There's a lot of sales, but this is why it's number 1. The 9.6 sold for $297, an increase of 13%, and 3 copies outsold that recent 12-month. The Newsy 9.6 sold for $425 at its height this week, an increase of 20%, and 4 newsstands outsold that 12-month average.
Then we have the CGC 9.8, 3 copies outperforming that 12-month average, and the highest coming in at $700. That's a 5% increase.
To put into perspective, when we chat about Godzilla 1, there was an increase of 54 copies added to the census in a month. In the last 7 days, there have been an increase of 45 Wolverine 1s added to the census. That's at a rate of 6 to 7 a day. And we had an increase of 9.8s in that span of time. Hot damn, this book is hot.
If it feels like we've been talking about this book a lot, it's because it's the 5th consecutive week that it's landed at number 1, and it's the 9th time out of 13 that it's been on the list this year.
And last week we reported on the Q1 rankings where this book trended above not only New Mutants 98, but Uncanny X-Men 131st Dazzler. This book is one you got to be keeping an eye out on, especially when you consider the 9.8s are breaching the $700 marker, and somebody picked one up for $590 this past week. Be patient, spec well, and, as always,
geek responsibly and stay minty fresh.
Enough said.